Hello, fellow Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. I know. Good to see you, too. We have a lot of information that we were hoping for on yesterday's show. Wilmer Hutchins had the school shooting, and you know how things are so fluid because it happened less than an hour before the James Show started yesterday, and we were actually going back and forth between live coverage and whatnot. And so let's nail down the things that we were hoping we would know in the first 24 hours that we do know. Number one is who did this and why. We did not have the guy in custody by the end of the show yesterday, so I was hoping to be able to pass that along with you. We didn't know his identity. We were told that the police were pursuing who they thought was the suspect. You know, eyewitnesses probably nailed him immediately. They just didn't tell us. Well, he's been arrested. He turned himself in around 9 o'clock last night. WFAA has the report.
I'm Kara Sewell, and I want to get right to new video just in, recorded overnight following the Wilmer Hutchins High School shooting. This is the suspect, 17-year-old Tracy Haynes Jr., as he was booked into the Dallas County Jail overnight. Haynes is charged with aggravated assault, mass shooting, according to the arrest warrant affidavit obtained by WFAA. Now, according to that affidavit, he was let into Wilmer Hutchins High School yesterday by another student before he began firing at students, shooting one at point-blank range.
Okay, so here's what you didn't see. The video, I don't know what I was expecting, but it looks like a child. It's so sad. It reminds me a lot of what happened at the Frisco track meet just 2 weeks ago. The guy arrested doesn't even look like an adult. Looks like someone that, if I saw him walking down the street, I'd offer him a ride home. Like, hey, you need help? You know where your mom's at? Are you allowed to be here? And try to take a life. The other guy did take a life. This guy squeezing off rounds at his fellow students there. Looks like a child. Yikes, that's ugly. Another question that you and I were wondering yesterday, what's his motivation? Not so sure on that, right, WFAA?
The motivation or circumstances that led to the shooting, still not clear, but we know 3 boys, ages ranging from 15 to 18, were shot, and a 4th was grazed by a bullet. All 4 were hospitalized, with at least one that was in serious condition.
A lot of people were asking me yesterday. I was even wondering aloud on the James Show, how did he get the gun in? They have metal detectors. They have the clear backpack rule. Apparently, someone had to sneak it in somehow. I'm sorry, this is a spokesman for the Dallas Police Department yesterday evening.
That the gun did not come through during regular intake time, so it was not a failure of our staff, of our protocols, or of the machinery that we have. It did not come in through regular intake.
And then another continuing thread that just can't be let go when you talk about this story is how odd it is that this is the second shooting in just 1 year for the same high school.
And this is the second time in about a year there's been a shooting there.
Police had been searching several spots, but overnight the suspect turned himself in. Right now, investigators are trying to figure out how that gun made it into the school.
Okay, so that's a real big one because you can't remember a high school that's had 2 shootings. However, let's talk about this term school shooting, because what we usually mean in these national stories that capture all of our attention in school shooting is someone who goes in there and just starts indiscriminately shooting people. I'm talking about a Virginia Tech. I'm talking about a Uvalde. I'm talking about the Sandy Hook. This isn't that. This is some guy comes in and he's not paranoid schizophrenic. He's not hearing voices. He doesn't have a manifesto. He's not especially angry at the world or certain subgroups within the world. This is a guy who's angry at one person. And so whether it's over drug beef or a girl or he got disrespected, he was actually targeting one person. So that's different than what we usually consider under the umbrella definition of school shooters and school shootings. Other thing that makes it different is that this guy actually tried to escape. How many of these school shooting guys, they either do the suicide by cop, or when the cops show up, they turn the gun on themselves, or they surrender when they run out of ammo, which like happened in Aurora, Colorado. This wasn't that. This was a guy who was not out of his mind. He's just a future criminal who finally made the leap into a present day criminal with this act. He tried to get away. And so now it's not some psycho mental health episode. This is just regular old street violence that happened to spill over into a school. So do we have to have a chat about mental health in this country? Do we have to have a chat about the availability of therapy and psychotropic drugs and things like that? Nope, that doesn't fit this one. So let's start having some adult conversations. KP in KC, Texas is how he's styled over on X. KP says, do we know how he got the gun and whose gun it was? Ooh. Now, when KP says that, you're probably thinking what I'm thinking. Remember last year, or maybe was it 2 years ago? There was a school shooting in Michigan, and I think last year his parents got convicted for allowing their kid, a minor, to have such easy access to a gun because it therefore facilitated the shooting at the school. Was these mom and dads going to get the same treatment? Is there a mom and dad? I mean, the only statement I saw from the guy yesterday was his aunt. That's a bad sign. But yeah, this is something that came up when we were talking about this last year. What about these parents? What about the parents of all the other minor criminals who are out there committing crimes with guns? All right, do they ever get held accountable? Kevin emailed me, James at WBAP.com, said they're looking at this all wrong. It's not what can we do about the doors or cameras. These are the kids that slap teachers and bully other kids at school, want to be gangsters at home, and no one has corrected them. It all starts at home, where someone teaches you how to act and treat others. And I like that. It's just not comfortable for a lot of people to admit, because that's not a problem you can fix with the metal detector. That's not a problem you can fix with clear backpacks. And they were told that, and they didn't want to believe it. So they did the metal detectors. They did the clear backpacks, and we still have the shooting. So clearly the problem isn't the lack of security at the schools. Clearly something's going on with the households that are producing the killers. Here to fill in some of the details, the great Chris Putnam from the Dallas Express, who's been doing a lot of good work with local news lately. Put him on your regular rotation. Chris Putnam. One thing I find that's missing from the story is I don't see a motive anywhere. Do we have any insight on that yet?
Yeah, I haven't seen anything either, James. Actually, kind of the thing about the story that struck me so far is not even the incident itself, although there's a lot of questions about it, obviously, particularly since there seems to be a lot of finger pointing about how this kid got a gun into school when they had metal detectors. But have you considered this yet? The bond for this kid who shot 4 people, none of them are dead, but he shot 4 people, $600,000. The bond on our friend in Frisco, $250,000, and a kid is dead. How does that make sense?
It definitely doesn't. A lot of this isn't going to make sense. But, yeah, we all remember last year that this happened, and I remember having the debate here on WBAP where people calling in, they need to do metal detectors, they need to do clear backpacks. Well, they did that, and it didn't work. So I think a lot of us were proven right, and some people were unfortunately proven wrong. But do you feel like there's any blame for the security protocols at the school?
Look, if the security protocols at the school aren't being followed, which is, I believe, what's being reported here, that there was a mistake or something, then what's the point? And, look, I think it's incredibly ironic that tomorrow in the state legislature we're going to have a vote on school choice. Because I just look at this in the context of everything else we've been dealing with, right? The pedo epidemic in our public schools. And, I mean, it's literally every single day there is another public educator arrested for sexually assaulting a child every day.
Yep.
I have a database of convicted felons that are working in our public schools, and then there's stuff like this, just this violence. And if you actually know anything about how most of these government schools operate, it's like any other bureaucracy, James. They're government employees. This is just mailing it in. And I'm sure that's what happened here with the security situation as well. And look, there's criminals everywhere. There's criminals in our schools. There's criminals, walking the streets. But if you're going to spend all this money to try to actually protect our kids and then not follow the protocols, what's the point?
Yeah, and I'm glad you focused on the school choice aspect here, because there's 1,000 kids at that school, and I bet you 900 families wish that they could send their kid to a different school or a better school, or at least have an option. But they don't. They're
by the way, right on. So this is actually the most important choice about school choice. And I did not come on to evangelize about that today, but it's
a good answer. It's a good response to this. Yes.
The children in our government schools that are suffering the most are the most economically disadvantaged. They have no choice. They are trapped in these awful, awful schools. Schools like in Fort Worth ISD, where there's a 4% passing rate on literacy tests. 4%. It is time to change everything and give these kids a legitimate alternative so we can rescue them from a lifetime of poverty and crime.
Well, I also like to take the focus on for the people who are trying to improve the security there. You know, they added metal detectors. They did the clear backpack. And the gun, the kid got in with a gun through a side door. One of his friends opened a door that's locked from the outside, I think is the assumption we're all making from the details here. So no matter...
By the way, can I stop you there because it's so funny because my kids went to Grapevine Colleyville High School. We had an incident there several years ago where they made the same excuse. There was a kid in the cafeteria waving a gun around when they had all these security protocols. Like, oh, he got through a back door. He was literally waving a gun around on Instagram in the school cafeteria.
Sad. Well, listen, look at the schools that don't have violence problems and don't have shootings and don't have these issues. Is it because they have metal detectors, Chris? Is it because they have clear backpacks? Or is it because the things that are happening outside of the school are making all the difference? And look, I feel the frustration from some people here because if you take my view of it, there's not a whole lot the school itself can do. You can't just sit around as a community and say, well, we added some metal detectors and clear backpacks. They should be safe now. No, it's going to be a lot harder work than that.
I'm honestly angry. And look, we just watched this for too long. These kids, these poor kids, they're all from economically disadvantaged and minority communities. They are trapped in these awful, awful government schools. And then you have people lecture us about how that's the only possible alternative. That's the only possible alternative for our tax money is to trap these kids in the same failing system year after year after year and give them no future because they don't have a choice. They can't homeschool. They can't afford private school. And I hate, but in Republicans too, when they twist this narrative to make it sound like vouchers or any form of school choice is a reward for private school families or for rich white people. That's not what we're solving here. And this is just another example. I'm angry about it. And I actually pray that they make the right decision tomorrow because whether it's perfect legislation or not, it is time to change because this is not working.
You know what I had to do that was kind of sad before the show started, Chris? I had to go to Give Send Go, and I just wanted to check to see if anyone had started a fundraiser for the suspect, the 17-year-old suspect in this shooting, Tracy Haynes. And so far there's not, but... are they going to raise $500,000 for him? Is he going to get to move into a new $900,000 house too? And
it's ridiculous.
Get a fresh, something's going on here, and
we're going to turn this. We're going to turn that whole thing into some fake hate social justice cause too, and that's another thing I'm just sick of. Like we had this situation with this guy Tony Ortiz, my buddy Tony Ortiz,
Current Revolt.
Yeah, great guy. Reported today this guy, I can't remember what town he was in, but literally goes and creates a fake hate website on himself.
Chris, I want to have an uncomfortable little moment here, and I want to compare this to the Frisco stabbing here, because if you look at this kid who goes into the high school and kills or attempts to kill a fellow student, when we talk about motive, we don't know yet, but we can kind of spitball. Maybe someone grabbed his arm. Chris, we learned that it's okay if someone slightly pushes you or grabs your arm. That could be a pretext for homicide.
Or ask you to leave their tent.
Yeah, something to that effect. Isn't that weird?
Yeah. No, I don't, but I'm back to the bail thing. I mean, that's the thing today that's just blowing my mind, and there's a lot of stuff going around on social media comparing like the situation with, the bail with the Frisco stabber to Jason Rittenhouse, right?
Kyle Rittenhouse?
I'm sorry, Kyle Rittenhouse, yeah. $1 million bail, right? The guy was totally innocent. Here, this kid had $1 million bail. They take it down to $250,000, which is $450,000 less than this kid that actually didn't kill anybody, although he shot 4 people. I mean, why are these kids getting bail at all? That's my question. These people are like shooting people in schools and stabbing them in the heart, and we're letting them out in jail back on the street. How insane is that, James?
Yeah, well, there's the lesson from that is what's going on with our judges. How are we all okay with this? I like the other lesson you brought up in the last segment, because that was on my little bullet points of things to get to today. And how strong of a case does this make for school choice? Something that's being debated in the state house right now. But I also wanted to
by the way, I think there's things every day from some school district in Texas, or more than one school district in Texas, that should have already made the case for school choice. Again, if you just, we actually did a series of stories that actually inventoried the scale of the pedo problem, in our Texas public schools. We always hear the one-off stories, right? This one in this district, this one in this district. It's huge. It's hundreds. And again, there's a new one every single day. And that's actually adults just sexually assaulting children. Not to mention, people that are actually felons that are serving as educators in our school. And I don't know if you do this, but there's certain laws that allow school districts, if an employee has actually been accused of a crime, they don't necessarily have to report to the police. They have to report it up through the various teacher unions, but not necessarily to the police. It's crazy.
Well, at some point, do we have people come off the idea that metal detectors actually work and make people safer, or make our kids safer? Because, I appreciate the effort. I realize it comes from good intentions, but if you're focusing your time and your energy and your money and your resources on things that aren't helping, that's not a good thing. You need to redirect.
To me, yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, James. And to me, it's very analogous to what happened after 9/11, right? And with Department of Homeland Security and with TSA. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, if you spend any time in an airport and dealt with TSA, the terrorists won. We lost. We lost some basic civil liberties at the expense of, 11 guys, because we overreacted, because the government solution is almost never the right solution.
Well, I think that's a good comparison too, because it's been 24 years and the TSA has caught zero active terrorists, absolute zero active terrorists. Now, they've confiscated more guns than any other federal program in American history, and I think that counts for Wounded Knee even.
A little bit of a left turn here, and I understand that, but I used to fly a lot globally, and one morning at like 5 o'clock or 6 in the morning, I'm at TSA pre, and I'm looking, it's just me and one other guy, and I'm looking through the scanner, and Roger Staubach's being patted down by a TSA.
Jesus Lord!
And I look up at Roger, and I just laugh. And he looks at me and he shakes his head. And I said to the TSA agent, I'm like, do you know who that is? Do you know what you're doing? That's Captain America. I'm like, you don't get to do that.
I had never heard that story. All right, good stuff. This is Chris Putnam, Dallas Express. I can't tell you enough. Put that on your regular rotation for local news. 800-288-9227. This is Linda in Fort Worth. You're on WBAP. What do you think about this school shooting?
Hi, Chris. I think it's another... Yes. Hi, James. I think it's another of the 428 school shootings since Columbine that we still say the same after every single one. Why did this happen? And then we keep doing the same thing over and over. And Chris is so right in what he was saying about how it's teachers and administrators. You walk into a school today and it's a very uncomfortable situation. I go into school a lot for the work I do for a local university, watching some interns, and it is scary to hear what teachers say to kids, even scarier what admin says to kids. And think of those kids, like you were saying a little bit ago, that maybe don't have the parent support at home. And, it's one thing to blame parent. Even if we did that, that's not going to solve anything. But when kids go to school each day, we have them for 7 hours a day. And what if teachers and admin learned how to talk to them in a way that was nonviolent, that was non-accusing, and instead of teaching them, this is how you settle things, we taught them differently, and I think it could happen.
So you think it would help if we had training for teachers on de-escalation methods where they talk like the people from NPR so they don't spook them?
Exactly. Because it's not. I mean, we're just making things worse.
Yeah, I think you're still dealing with the symptom there. I think the fact that you have kids that are willing to pop off and go homicidal to begin with really puts the teacher's tone of voice as not even a top 10 priority there. The schools that don't have these issues, the schools that don't have violence, that don't have shootings or kids sneaking in guns all the time, is it because their teachers are talking to them in an NPR tone, or is it because they have a more stable household where they're being raised by both of their biological parents?
They're talking to them with the NPR tone. Let me tell you about a school that exists in Austin, Texas. It was formed by Austin Public Schools about 15 years ago for, quote, the throwaway kids, the ones that got thrown out of schools, had babies, were homeless, went to jail, and came back. This school has 80% at-risk kids. Every teacher, every staff member in that school, and including the principals, have been trained in something called solution-focused counseling. Every single one. They have 80% graduation rate. They have no discipline issues at all.
Well, that sounds incredibly optimistic. I remain skeptical, though. I would still prefer my kids go to the schools that don't have the killers that are sent there, whether or not they get spooked by their teacher's tone of voice. But I'm not saying you're wrong, Linda. That's new. Let's talk about what can we do about it. How can we keep our little kiddos safe as they go to school? Do we even have to worry about such things? 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. I think there's a limit to what schools can actually do about this. I know that's not a fun thing to say and doesn't make you feel all warm and fuzzy inside, but there was a speculation for when they added metal detectors after last year that people who share my worldview said that's not really the solution. Clear backpacks aren't the problem. The other schools where we don't have violence, where we don't have kids shooting each other, in multiple instances here, it's not because they have clear backpacks. It's not because they have metal detectors. It's because they have something that a lot of the kids in the less safe schools seem to lack, at least proportionally. Not all of them, obviously. I know I'm speaking in generalities, but let your guard down. Let's not be too sensitive here. What they really need, the big difference, dads. And that's going to break some hearts because there's not a government program that can replace a dad. Metal detectors are not an adequate replacement for dad. Clear backpacks have shown to be inadequate into replacing the safety that comes from your kid sharing a school full of students who, generally speaking, have dads. 35% of boys with a present biological father obtain a college degree. Just 14% of boys who do not have a present biological father obtain a college degree. Fatherless boys are about twice as likely to have spent some time in jail before they reach the age of 30. Twice as likely to be criminals. You hear that? Children brought up in single mother homes are 5 times more likely to commit suicide, 9 times more likely to drop out of high school, 10 times more likely to be addicted to chemical substances, 14 times more likely to commit rape for the boys, 20 times more likely to end up in prison, not jail, prison, 20 times. So now we're talking about not criminals, we're talking about serious crimes, violent crimes. So what do you do about that? Well, nothing at the school level. It's too late at that point. What do you think the solutions are? Because if you take my worldview, then you got to start saying, okay, well, is there anything we can do to lessen that? Well, stop subsidizing single parenting. Stop making it lucrative to be raising kids in a single house, whether it's subsidies through government programs or civil subsidies, air quotes, through very generous child support laws. And maybe we need to take a look at how we divvy up custody and asset sharing and divorce or something like that. But it's not metal detectors, I can tell you that. 800-288-9227. Ooh, we got a lot of callers. I want to do Kay and Grapevine. You're on WBAP. What do you think we should do?
Well, I was just talking about why we always are told by politicians that we need to have a conversation about one thing or another, whatever they think the solution is. But you're right. It's not the schools. It's too late then. And it's whoever is teaching these children or not teaching them morals And whoever is teaching them that hatred and I'm going to get them is the answer, it is not the answer to anything.
Yeah, well, that's not something a politician's going to
themselves. Unfortunately, that is sad.
Yes, but Kay, what you're bringing up are cultural issues. There's not a policy that can be changed. There's not a law that needs to be changed. Some communities are going to have to look inward and say, why are we doing such a poor job raising kids who are violent?
Yes, but if you do try to have the conversation, they'll tell you you're a racist.
Well, then we have to be better at working around that, because I'm not making the blanket statement that this is a problem within the black community. I am saying this is a problem within a specific subset of all communities, and that's fatherless homes. You know, white people who come from fatherless homes follow those statistics too. They're 20 times more likely to end up in prison than a black kid who is raised with his biological father present. See, this is what I like about these statistics, is that they are race neutral. The problem isn't the color of your skin. It's not even your culture, because it's not, you know, the Uncle Phil's and Carlton Banks from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air that are shooting up schools. It's no black females that are shooting up schools. And when we go to look in adulthood, when there's a drive-by or this guy that got shot on Harwood a couple days ago, it's never a black guy in a suit. It's never an old black guy. What we have is not anything that's race specific. It's father specific.
But they're not even going to allow you to say that.
Well, I'm saying it until I get fired. How about that, Kay? That's all I can do.
No, I mean,
I know. Let me take some more calls.
You to say it in the halls of Congress.
All right, Kay, I'm going to run. Thank you.
About.
Mark, Hillsboro, what do you think we should do?
Well, I called about the reporter that talked and made the comment that the 900 kids from Wilmer Hutchins would be able to go to private school if we have
school vouchers, school choice. Yes, that was me.
Yeah, and that's not so. They're not going to be able to pay for with $10,000 to go to private school. It's the ones that are already paying private school are going to get a reduction. Also, I'm an educator for over 40 years,
and so you have a vested interest in being against school vouchers. I get it. That's an inane argument. Maybe all of them wouldn't be able to afford it just on the $10,000 alone, but maybe if there's a school out there that's $20,000, they can't afford it. Maybe if they get $10,000, they can come up with the other $10,000, or maybe it's $15,000, or maybe it's $11,000, and they only have to come up with a little bit a month. How about we at least help them get there, and how about we at least have them give them the option of making that decision themselves, and not having Mark in Hillsboro just shut the door on them because, well, there's rich people that might benefit from this too, so we can't let you benefit from it as well.
Well, I would. He also made the comment.
No, I made the comment.
No, I'm talking about your reporter when he was talking to him.
Okay.
That with the government got involved in 9/11 and they went too far.
Yes.
And I still wish they'd just put it up for a vote and let the people of Texas decide it. But I did private schools also and public schools.
I got to run. I'm just out of time. Thank you very much, Mark in Hillsboro. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. His name's Steve in Carrollton, but he goes by Big Bad Black Conservative. Welcome back to the James Show. Steve, your thoughts on the Wilmer Hutchins high school shooting?
What's going on, Mr. Parker? I'm glad you took my call. I was getting concerned there. I said, all these people are eating up my shine, man. I'm never going to make it big.
The floor is yours, Steve. Go ahead.
Thanks. First thing first, I've heard this several times today on different radio shows all day long. And the first thing is about the $1 million bond that the kid in Frisco got. And they said, oh, it was a $250,000 bond, and he killed a kid. The other one, $600,000, and he only shot people.
Right.
But the reality is that's not the reality. The reality is it was $1 million bond for shooting a kid, for killing a kid, and $250,000 for shooting them, and that'll probably end up being reduced, or $600,000. I'm sorry, for shooting them, and that'll probably end up being reduced down to something less than the $250 because it was something less than murder. Do I agree with it? No, but that accuracy is important to me when it comes to putting these details out there.
Yeah, maybe we should refine that criticism after the Bell hearing.
Yeah. After they reduce it down to we'll release you on your own recognizance. Complete
right. Yeah, don't have something else to complain about.
Yeah. Now, but the other stuff you were talking, and your question was, how do we fix it? Teachers. I wrote some of this stuff down while I was on hold, so forgive me if it gets too boring. I'll
go ahead.
Cut it short. The teachers and the administrators don't treat kids as well as they should, because one of your callers were saying, well, it's because the teachers don't treat the kids right.
Mm-hmm.
But they do that because the doors are locked. There's no chance that I'm going to be walking through the hallways and hear Miss Jenkins screaming at the kids and calling him or her out of their names, because the doors are locked. I mean, I can't even get in to watch one of my kids' classrooms myself. So, of course, the teachers are going to mistreat the kids. That's not to say that all teachers are bad.
Now, I like that because that feels counterintuitive to a lot of people listening, but locking down the schools may actually have a negative impact on school security. I remember, because they've been doing metal detectors in schools, Steve, since at least the 90s, since like Dangerous Minds and all those movies were coming out. Yep. And are those schools much safer now? Absolutely not. And the ones that don't have the problems, do they have metal detectors? No. So turning your schools into sort of a low grade prison has proven not to work. And Steve, I don't know what your school was like growing up, but every once in a while you would go to class and someone's mom would just be in the back observing. Yep.
And it made the teacher probably less comfortable, but it may have made the teacher more comfortable. I don't know, but I do know that if I am an employee, if my boss is sitting there watching me do the thing, it makes me a little more nervous, but I do a better job doing it. Or at least I do my best.
Good point.
More
no one has said that. So, hey, right now, Steve's up to 7 points, Garrett. All right, I just added 7. All right, next point.
So I'm looking at, you said, what can we do to fix it? Straight male teachers. Since getting dads in is not an option, they're gone for 10,000 different reasons. But straight male teachers, instead of all these people who are not upholding values of historically normal or good society, if we put those straight male teachers back in the classrooms, instead of pulling them out. Well, first of all, guys usually don't even teach anymore. But who do,
Steve, how
push them to the district level?
Is there something we're doing to disincentivize male teachers? Because I think they're just not choosing these jobs. Something like 78% of public school teachers are women, and the numbers are even more stark when it gets down to the elementary level. But I think guys are choosing. We just don't want to be elementary school teachers. Are you saying we need to incentivize this somehow? And how do we do it?
I'm saying that we do need
turning your school.
But I'll tell you one of the reasons why we don't, or why men are not doing it. One of the reasons is because of all the sexual assault harassment and other claims that they have the ability, especially in the era of, blame all women, or not blame.
Believe all women. Yeah.
So guys, like, you know what? Hands off. I'll just go to the factory, or I'll go do some engineering stuff, or well digging, or whatever it is they want to do that gets them out of that potential.
So society treating grown men as potential predators at all times does kind of push them away. I can see that. That's probably a field goal. Another 3 points for Steve. Go ahead.
But you look at you also have like I said earlier, every male teacher that I personally know was in the classroom for a couple years, maybe, and almost immediately they were put into administration level at the school. And almost the next year, they were taken all the way out of the school and moved up to the district level. What does that do? That eliminates him from the school. It eliminates him from the classroom. So the good that he could have done, the guys that actually are in education, they aren't even in education. They're at the district level somewhere, theoretically influencing policy. But if there are no guys at the local level, it doesn't do anybody any good.
All right. Well, these are all good points. Steve, this is the conversations we need to be having. Thank you for calling in from Carrollton, sir. Appreciate it.
No problem.